This program contains graphic violence and sexual situations. Viewer discretion is advised.
No!
Dozens of missing young women.
We've got an individual who's targeting a particular victim type.
A sorority house of horrors. And a handsome, deadly stranger.
They lean in and boom, the monster comes out.
A plot of a Hollywood movie? This is a terrifying, true story.
He's the guy next door, and he's also one of the world's most notorious serial killers.
The actual events behind the deceptive serial killer Buffalo Bill in the award-winning movie The Silence of the Lambs. Behind the Screams. It's the summer of 1974. School is out, and hot weather draws hundreds of young boys and girls to bask in the sun. At Lake Samamish in Issaquah, Washington, 23-year-old probation officer Janice Ott is enjoying her day off. She closes her eyes and takes in the warm rays. But just as she begins to settle in, a shadow falls over her. It's a man with an injured arm held up in a sling.
Hi.
I don't bite. What's your name?
Janice?
Nice to meet you.
Tan, charming, and handsome. He hardly feels like a stranger, and he desperately needs a hand. He's trying to launch his sailboat, and because of his injury, he's having a very hard time. If she could help for just a minute, he'd be grateful. He says it's just a short walk from the lake.
I mean, if you need help,
Thank you.
okay?
I really appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
As the two head off together, the injured man's request seems completely innocent. But things are not as they seem. Young Janice never returns. And the most terrifying thing, she wasn't the only girl that went missing at the lake that day. At 4 p.m., just 4 hours after Janice disappeared, 19-year-old Denise Naslund left her friends to go to the washroom. She didn't come back. Friends of the girls report not one, but 2 missing persons in the same location in less than 24 hours. It's a horrifying sign to police.
In this particular case, we have one young woman going missing, and then another very, very quickly after the first. That is clearly going to set the pattern for this investigation on its own. If I'm the investigator in this setting, I'm going to want to be very attentive to making sure there's not a third girl missing 2 hours later from this.
This is Keppel.
The job of finding these missing girls falls on Detective Bob Keell. At 31, he's not the most experienced cop in the unit, but he's a skilled investigator. With missing persons, the first 48 hours are the most critical. For Keppel and his partner Roger Dunn, that window is already closing fast.
All right, we're on our way.
I'd be probably overwhelmed with what to do even strategically in terms of how to collect whatever available evidence is here. This is really a staggering kind of an investigation, particularly since you've got 2 victims instead of 1.
Detective Keppel organizes a search party. Hundreds of volunteers scour the woods surrounding the lake.
In a missing person case like this, the smallest thing you think you might even pass right by could be of critical importance, because you don't know what's critically important. You don't know what belongs to her, what doesn't belong to her. If you find a shoelace, if you find a shoe print, you got to make sure you either attach it to her or know it's hers or know it's not hers. So you end up collecting dozens and dozens and hundreds of pieces of small, seemingly unrelated pieces of evidence, hoping that some small percentage will actually be related to this crime.
Found something!
50 yards from the lake, a volunteer finds a bathing suit. It looks similar to Janice's, but it's not a match. And while over the next few days, volunteers recovered dozens of earrings and countless bathing suits from in and around Lake Samamish, none of these things belong to either Janice Ott or Denise Naslund. Detective Keppel knows another girl could go missing at any moment. He issues a press statement, urgently requesting Sunday's lakegoers to turn in any pictures taken at or near where the girls were last seen.
What they're hoping is that people at the lake were taking pictures of their family, of the location, and somehow in the background, they captured photographs of the girls. So you can't identify all these people that were there. All you can make is a general plea for anybody who took photographs, please contact us so that we can review it. They may find actually the women in the background with somebody that they can describe.
They also ask any witnesses to come forward and make a statement. With some 40,000 people at the lake that day, someone might have seen something that can help police.
In a case like this, if you can't find physical evidence, things left at the crime scene that hopefully will identify the direction the victim went in or come back to matching the suspect in some way, you're going to turn to non-physical evidence, like the statements of eyewitnesses that can tell you something about what they saw. Sometimes that kind of evidence, descriptions of what the suspect looked like, what the suspect did, what the suspect drove, can be the best form of evidence possible.
2 more days pass, and police collect hundreds of photos. But the missing girls don't appear to be in any of them.
Cap, I got nothing.
With no physical or circumstantial evidence, the investigation stalls. The pressure on Detective Keppel is enormous.
When you work a missing persons case like this, there's a family on the other side of the equation that is very emotionally involved, very emotionally engaged, are panicked. They're trusting you as the kind of savior of the case. You're going to hopefully bring their loved one back to them, and that's a very emotionally charged environment in which to work.
Detective Keppel.
Then, Keppel's luck suddenly changes.
What girl are you referring to?
He gets a call from a 15-year-old high school student named Sylvia Valent, and she has a very promising lead. She was at the lake at the same time the 2 women disappeared. And she swears she saw a woman who matched Janice Ott's photo from the paper. At around noon, she watched the same woman leave with a good-looking young man wearing an arm sling. Then, Valent reveals a new piece of evidence.
We got a name.
She overheard the man calling himself Ted. It could be a critical clue, or a fake alias meant to throw investigators off course.
Would the suspect use his real name, or is this name something he's just invented for the purpose of this crime? So investigators have to be very careful not to accept on face value that this is actually the name of the suspect.
With the elusive suspect still at large, more witnesses come forward, all women, claiming they too were approached by a handsome stranger who called himself Ted. One of them even remembers the make and model of his car, a Volkswagen Bug.
They've got now a description of a vehicle. The problem is there aren't any databases of those kinds of vehicles. You're basically having to go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and probably hand search written records. And that's going to be incredibly time consuming. So even though they have some information, it's not enough to really help them focus on any one individual.
Done. Check this out. All right. So
Armed with the suspect's first name and a description of his vehicle, Keppel compares witness accounts with sightings of Ott and Naslund. A disturbing picture emerges.
That's our guy.
Right.
Eyewitnesses saw Ted right up until Janice disappeared. They resumed later that afternoon when Denise vanished. Then he was gone. A handsome young man, going by the name of Ted, who wears his arm in a sling and drives a Volkswagen Bug, is now the main suspect in Issaquah's biggest missing persons case ever. But who is he? Detective Keppel orders a drawing of the suspect based on the testimony of multiple witnesses. The sketch, the name Ted, and the make and model of the car are released to the public. Keppel and Dunn are hopeful someone knows who this man is. But the public's response is more than they bargained for. Within days, Keppel and his partner are bombarded with Ted sightings, up to 200 per day. In a matter of weeks, they have thousands of possible suspects. Clearly, the suspect looks just like any guy next door.
When you are developing potential suspect profiles, what they look like, what they drive, sometimes there's no way to narrow down your potential suspect pool. And that's the problem that the police were faced with here. They ended up with about 2,400 potential suspects. That's really overwhelming. You can't work with that many suspects. You have to find a way to narrow that pool down.
As the list continues to grow, the investigation seems like it could be another frustrating cold case. Then, a month later, out of nowhere, Keppel gets a huge break. In the woods near Lake Samamish, a lone hunter is out looking for game when he hears a familiar bird call. Stepping off the trail, he creeps through the brush, but instead of game, what he finds is unimaginable horror. Human skeletal remains. He immediately notifies police. That same day, Keppel and his partner, Detective Roger Dunn, arrive with a team of forensic experts to examine the evidence at the site. It's a horrifying scene. Clumps of long hair and two complete skeletons. Keppel fears these could be the remains of Janice Ott and Denise Naslund. But he needs proof.
Even though we have two people who were missing at the same time, and now we've discovered two bodies at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean these are the same two people. We've got to make a comparison. We've got to identify these bodies as the two missing victims. And not having DNA technology in the 70s, not having some of the other technology we have today, one of the best ways to do this is simply to look at dental and medical records. Was there any particular dental work which would identify one of these bodies to the known dental work of one of the victims? Or was there a broken bone or some other anatomy that was peculiar to one of the victims that we could then identify in the remains?
Within days, comparing a skull and separate lower jaw recovered from the scene with dental records for the two missing women, the coroner confirms the worst. These are, in fact, the remains of Janice Ott and Denise Naslund. The families of the victims and the entire community are devastated.
Having two victims at one location should tell you that you've got an offender who's using this particular location as a dumping ground. We're not dealing with just happening by random. This is happening because it's purposeful. The offender's dumping them here.
Keppel reviews the autopsy reports. The one cranium recovered at the scene was bludgeoned. It indicates the killer uses a blunt object, like a pipe or a crowbar, to incapacitate his victims. And once they're knocked out, he can do any evil thing he desires.
This man has had a great success incapacitating his victims quickly, and that's what he wants to do. You can't scream if you're unconscious.
And there's another gruesome discovery.
This femur belongs to a young female, but it belongs to neither Janice nor Denise.
There's a third, unidentified victim buried at the site. And it's also female.
Sounds like a burial ground.
Now this changes your complexion of the scene also. Is this a dump scene for bodies that's gone back a number of months or years, and now we have it's only that's left is a femur bone from an additional victim? Is this related to these two at all? These are the questions you have to go through as an investigator as you're discovering additional bones at this site.
Hoping to find a link, Detective Keppel digs deeper. He carefully investigates unsolved murders and missing persons cases throughout Washington state, even outside his own jurisdiction.
We're dealing with law enforcement investigations in the 1970s. There's probably very little sharing of information between agencies, especially when you start crossing county lines or state lines. They don't have the computer systems that we have now. They're relegated mostly to hand-searching documents, paper files. It's fairly primitive. It's fairly labor-intensive. Record searches, telephone calls, teletypes.
Detective Keppel looks for similar cases and uncovers a disturbing trend. Over the past year, in other parts of Washington state and Oregon, young college girls close in age to Janice Ott and Denise Naslund, have been disappearing. On average, 1 every month, 8 since February.
The frequency of these kinds of cases at this period of time was alarming. The description of all the missing women was very similar. The frequency in which they were taken was very similar. You might expect a missing person here, a missing person there occasionally, but to see this many in a repeated pattern of similar description, clearly it's a series, and it changes the way you work a case like this.
There's something particularly disturbing about one of them. 19-year-old Susan Rancourt. While walking alone near campus, she vanished. No witnesses, no body, no evidence. On the days leading up to her disappearance, witnesses reported seeing a suspicious man on campus. Good-looking, approximately 5'10", wearing an arm sling. And then, the most startling similarity. This mystery man asked several young women to help him carry books to his VW Bug. If this is the same man witnesses saw at Lake Samamish on the day Janice Ott and Denise Naslund disappeared, there's a serial killer on the loose, targeting young, college-age women. The question is, where will he strike next? Looking at the evidence, Detective Keppel sees that Susan Rancourt's college is only 100 miles from Lake Samamish. If these disappearances, happening over such a great distance, are connected, Keppel may be hunting in the wrong location.
Serial killers develop certain MOs. They'll pick the same kinds of victims, maybe use the same manner of killing, or be working in the same geographic area. If I think I'm getting overexposed as a serial killer, or that I'm exposing myself to being more likely to be caught, I'm gonna change one of those three things to make the next crime not appear to be too directly connected to my past crimes. If I'm not gonna change my MO on how I kill somebody, or the kind of victim I'm gonna select, I'm gonna change geography.
Detective Bob Keell has been investigating more than a dozen unsolved murders and disappearances in Washington State and Oregon. The killer is still on the loose, but his wave of terror seems to have stopped. What Keell doesn't realize, hundreds of miles away in Murray, Utah, the terror has just begun again.
I walked out to my car and I saw this man.
An 18-year-old girl named Carol Danch has entered a local police station with a terrifying story to tell.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. Your car...
Just hours before, she's in a parking lot when a man approaches her.
I'm Officer Roseland.
He says his name is Officer Roseland.
2 hours ago.
He tells her he witnessed someone attempting to break into her car.
We're gonna do a little bit of paperwork. We'll get it all cleared up.
He needs to drive her to the station to file a report.
Don't worry, I think we have everything under control.
Danch agrees to go with him.
I know.
His car, a VW Bug, doesn't look anything like a police car.
We're just 10 minutes away.
But she thinks he must be working undercover.
This guy's approaching people posing as a police officer, and that can be very effective for some people who give a lot of authority to police officers.
What are you doing? The police station is back that way.
We're going...
But Danch quickly realizes this man is not a police officer.
Get off! Get the hell off me!
No.
Get off!
The man strikes her with a crowbar. But she won't give in. She barely escapes the horrifying ordeal.
He put the handcuffs on and we were just hitting and fighting in the car.
The officer tells her the perpetrator was an imposter. The handcuffs don't belong to the Murray Police Department. And there is no Officer Roseland. Carol Danch is lucky to be alive.
She fought back, she got out of the vehicle, and she ran. Now, there is a living victim out there that can identify him, identify the vehicle, and has left trace evidence, physical trace evidence, in that vehicle. So, oftentimes when the offenders, even when they try to clean these cars, they always miss something. So this becomes a big problem for the offender. He's actually lost control in this case. What that often does for the offenders is causes them to change their MO. They recognize, oh, I've got a problem I didn't have before. Now, how do I fix that for the next time? Because there will be a next time. With each victim and each instance, they learn how to become a better killer through their MO. Their MO is what makes them successful at committing the crime. If this offender lost control of Carol Danch, the next time he acts out against someone, he's going to know this, and he is going to try to fix what went wrong the last time. More control, more violence, a more remote location. It'll be different.
Hoping to take advantage of a lucky eyewitness, the officer brings in a sketch artist. Her attacker was about 5'10", handsome, with a medium build and brown hair. What Utah police don't know, this description precisely matches the suspect police are searching for in Washington.
Back in the 70s, if you have a series of crimes that are occurring in Washington state, and then you have a series of crimes that are occurring in Utah, there's no reason for those investigators to be talking to one another. They don't have any knowledge of each other's crimes. We're not talking about 24/7 news networks that are putting this information out. They don't have computer networks that are linked in. There's no databases that are checking missing persons. So just because there's a set of women missing in Washington state, any women that go missing in Utah, there's absolutely no reason for investigators to be talking to investigators in Washington.
Back in Washington state, detectives Bob Keell and Roger Dunn continue their investigation of unsolved murders and missing persons cases in the area.
They look like they could be sisters.
when they notice a troubling pattern. More than a dozen of the women look alike. They're all young, attractive, and Caucasian. And many share another remarkable similarity: their hairstyle.
We know that serial offenders tend to have a particular victim type that they're looking for. So when Keppel and Dunn start to look at these women that are disappearing, they notice that they all have long hair, dark hair, it's parted in the middle, and the women look very similar. If they're so similar looking, then that becomes very important because it tells you that you've got an offender who is selecting his women. Remember, the offender is making conscious choices about the woman he wants to offend.
The female victims whose remains were found showed they'd also been bludgeoned, just like the victims discovered near Lake Samamish. The pattern is now unmistakable.
Then you start wondering, well, gosh, I've got some missings where I don't have bodies that may or may not even be related. Are all these missings part of this? It really does give you a sense that this is something, a tip of an iceberg. Something a lot bigger is right below the surface.
Keppel is convinced.
It's the same killer.
Meanwhile, sightings of a handsome man named Ted keep coming in. Thousands of them.
All right, yeah, we'll send someone over there and check it out. Thank you.
It's virtually impossible to follow up on every lead.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Trying to narrow down the list, Detective Keppel does what none of his colleagues have ever done before. He turns to something completely new in police work:
Check this out.
the computer.
A few of these numbers do match up.
Keppel is really an innovator here. He recognizes he's got a tremendous amount of data, and he's not sure how to put it all together. Vehicles, descriptions, locations. So he wants to utilize a computer to run similarities in databases, find the needle in the haystack. And this is really a novel approach, and it's something that ends up being very useful.
Credit card matches with that.
Keppel cross-references key pieces of information to try and place a specific suspect near the crime scenes on the days of the murders and disappearances. Classmates of former victims and missing persons, registered owners of VW Bugs, guests of certain hotels. Detectives make over 30 lists. Next, they focus on names that show up on at least 4 of them.
Searching databases is not how law enforcement investigations were done. We're talking boots on the ground, or, the gumshoe detective wearing out the treads of their souls, going to do interviews, following up leads. That's how investigations were done. We weren't searching databases. Keppel is looking to the future. He recognizes that this technology, even in its early stages, is available, and he wants to put it to use, see if it can help him in this investigation.
The computer search delivers some astonishing results. It's a list of just 25 names. It's still a big number. But now, Detective Keppel is closing in. Then he gets word of another gruesome discovery. On Taylor Mountain, 20 miles east of Lake Samamish, someone's found a human skull. When Keppel arrives at the scene with his partner, Detective Roger Dunn, he immediately gets to work. It's another mass human grave in the woods, but this one is full of bone fragments. And they're all pieces of human skulls. So many, they can't all belong to the same victim. Examining closely, Keppel notes a similar amount of moss growing on all of the bones. It suggests the remains are decomposing at the same rate.
We have 4 skulls that all appear to be in the same state of decomposition. There's only one conclusion you can draw from that, that these skulls were maintained in an environment that kept them from decomposing. So these women may have been taken at different times, their heads were cut off at different times, but they likely were stored either refrigerated or frozen for a period of time until they were all disposed of at once. Now you just realize you've got a bigger problem because now we have remains separated by different locations. You're thinking, where else are other remains that we have not found? Generally, there are going to be victims of this offender that we are not going to find, or we're going to find at a much later date.
Forensic experts determined that 3 of the victims are missing college students. One of them is Susan Rancourt, the college girl authorities believe was abducted by the man in the arm sling named Ted. Detective Keppel is now convinced the Lake Samamish killer has murdered at least 7 women, and he'll kill again and again if he isn't stopped.
Having that weight of realizing that you've got a serial killer out there is a tremendous amount of weight. You feel responsible for solving this case because you don't want another woman to go missing, to die at the hands of this individual. And you know it's going to happen unless you get him identified.
Hundreds of miles away in West Valley City, Utah, after a high-speed pursuit, Sergeant Bob Hayward has pulled over a man he thinks may have been planning to rob a home in his neighborhood.
May I see your license and registration, please?
The driver's name is Theodore Ted Bundy. Bundy claims he lost his way coming home from the movies.
Towering Inferno with some friends, so it was fun.
Officer Hayward doesn't buy it. He knows the movie Towering Inferno isn't playing anywhere in the area. The man is lying. But why?
Sir, could I ask you to get out of the car? It's up against the car. All right, hands behind your back.
Bundy's dishonesty and the high-speed chase give Hayward cause to search the vehicle.
In the bag, there are 4 objects that are very suspicious. You've got a ski mask, you've got an ice pick, a crowbar, handcuffs. These are the kinds of things you would typically see if you're about to kidnap somebody or do a crime much worse than kidnapping.
Theodore Bundy is brought into custody and charged with possession of burglary tools.
He's put together what we in law enforcement call a murder kit, so that he has all of the tools that he needs to carry out this. What average citizen is carrying a kit like that? Nobody carries it unless there's somebody bent on the destruction of another individual. You take that information with all of the other circumstantial information, becomes a very powerful case.
But he's suspected of much more than burglary. He matches the description of a man who recently impersonated an officer and attempted to kidnap 18-year-old Carol Danch. Officers order Bundy into a lineup with his suspected victim Carol Danch standing behind the one-way mirror.
We would hope that she can identify the individual who abducted her and tried to capture her in the car. She was mere inches from him. If you look at the length of her interaction with this individual, she was called over to the vehicle, she had a conversation with this individual, she got into the car, she's looked at him many times. It's, the lighting is good. You should think that it's very likely she will identify the right individual.
That's him.
Scanning the men's faces, she doesn't hesitate. She immediately identifies Bundy as the man who introduced himself as Officer Roseland and then attacked her with a crowbar. He's charged with kidnapping and attempted murder. But police want to know more. Obtaining a warrant, they search Bundy's apartment and car. Inside the apartment, officers find 2 pamphlets, one from a Utah high school play, the other from a Colorado ski resort. It's a disturbing discovery. The officers know 2 women were recently abducted from these specific locations. The cases made national news. Searching Bundy's Volkswagen Bug, police find 2 long hairs. They send them both to the crime lab for testing. Weeks later, the lab results come in, and they're shocking. One of the hairs seems to match the woman murdered near the Colorado ski resort. Her name was Karen Campbell. While Utah police build their case against Bundy, reporters make a startling observation about the suspected killer that could change everything. They notice Bundy resembles the suspect in a string of Washington murders.
Couple.
Utah police immediately contact the Washington authorities and Detective Bob Keell. Detective Keell hears the name Theodore Bundy and alarm bells go off. The name Bundy is on his list of 25 potential suspects.
It's a euphoric feeling to recognize that all of these hundreds and hundreds of hours that you've spent searching for this potential suspect is coming to fruition. When you're talking about disparate geographic areas and you have an individual like Ted Bundy, you can say, and I can tie Ted here. I can tie Ted to Utah. I can tie Ted into Washington. He is high on the radar in all of these locations at those times. It's an incredible feeling because you know you're getting the right guy.
He puts together a timeline on Bundy. He started law school in Utah right after the murders in Washington stopped. And his credit card data shows he was in the area when several victims disappeared. He's now a prime suspect in 13 murders and disappearances in Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado. Still, the evidence they have so far doesn't prove Bundy's a murderer. Getting a conviction may be tough. For the next 9 months, with Bundy behind bars in Utah, Detective Keell builds a murder case against him. The strongest case is the murder of Karen Campbell. Her body was found near a ski resort in Colorado, and one of her hairs was found in Bundy's car. Authorities move Bundy to a jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, to await trial. While he waits for his day in court, he routinely skips meals, protesting the quality of the food. His weight loss is extreme for someone his size, 30 pounds. But his rapid slimming is just a part of a devious plan. On New Year's Eve, 1977, the unthinkable happens. Climbing through a tiny hole he cut in the ceiling of his cell, Bundy escapes. The next morning, with most of the staff on holiday, a lone janitor is sweeping the cell block when he notices a huge problem. Bundy's cell is empty. Looking up, he spots the hole in the ceiling just wide enough for a man, a very skinny man. Under the bed, he finds the escape tool, a hacksaw stolen from a jail workshop. With limited surveillance inside the cell, Bundy could have escaped up to 17 hours ago.
Jailbreaks don't happen very often, and when they do, they're shocking to police. You establish this system that for the most part, 99.9% of the time is very effective at keeping people in. And so when someone breaks out, it's shocking. And it gets a lot of dramatic attention by the news media, which is exactly what's happening in this case. At this point, if it's me as an investigator, and I've invested time to get this guy in custody, the worst nightmare is to find out that he's now loose again.
Investigators are embarrassed and furious. Bundy is nearly a day ahead of them. A national manhunt ensues.
There's a sense that Ted Bundy must feel invincible at this point, because not only has he gotten away with a lot of murders that so far are completely undetected, that even when he gets caught on an attempt kidnapping, he's able to control his environment again. He's able to get out again. I can only imagine that as he's out from this particular arrest and he's out free again, that he's got a sense that no matter what comes in front of me, I can handle it. I can either get around it, talk my way out of it, or eventually escape from it.
Authorities issue new photos and a description to press offices and police departments around the country.
It's very important for Ted to stay sort of undercover, out of sight, not get himself identified by other people. But Ted had this very interesting sort of chameleon-like ability. He could change his appearance, the way he looked, the way he dressed.
A week goes by, then 2. There's no sign of Bundy. And no new murders have been reported. Investigators have no idea where he is or what he's up to.
He needed to stay sort of undercover, stay out of the spotlight, but he still had his compulsions. He still had this drive, this need to take out these women.
Tallahassee, Florida, thousands of miles from Colorado. The sorority girls at Florida State University's Chi Omega chapter settle in for the night.
Have you heard from Kyle?
With a busy week ahead, sisters Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman are ready to get some rest. When pure evil walks through the door. In the darkness, he slips quietly into a bedroom. Looks down at his helpless victim and strikes. And he does it over and over. It's a massacre.
When we're talking about serial killers, the fact that they engage in these need-driven ritualized behaviors actually elevates their risk because it forces them to be at the crime scene longer, to engage with the victim longer. There's a greater chance of being identified, being seen, leaving more forensic evidence. Despite that elevated risk, they need to engage in those behaviors. That need-driven behavior that we see in crimes 1 and 2 is going to generally be the same type of behavior you're going to see in crimes 19 and 20. When you look at Bundy, you have this confluence of brains, good looks, charming individual that everybody seemed to gravitate towards. That he's got this ruse, his leg is damaged or his arm is broken, and he's trying to carry things and they lean in and boom, the monster comes out.
The the monster silently bludgeons 4 young women before raping, sodomizing, and even biting his unconscious victims. 2 of the girls, Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman, die.
Keppel.
Back in Washington State, Detective Keppel gets a call from the Florida police. Rape, blunt force trauma, young women. It seems like the work of the same serial killer he's been chasing. And there's more. The killers left a living witness. Although she had no idea her sorority sisters had been slaughtered, one girl says she spotted a strange man walking down the stairs that night. And from her description, Keppel's certain it has to be Ted Bundy.
He's breaking into buildings to attack his victim. It's very, very risky. And so you have a sense almost that he's becoming reckless again, like he senses the end is near as he's on the run for his earlier crimes.
Investigators immediately turn their attention to Florida. Police are on the lookout for any stolen vehicles. One of them could lead to Bundy. Then, in Pensacola, a month after the Chi Omega murders in Tallahassee, Officer David Lee pulls over a Volkswagen Bug that was reported stolen 3 days earlier.
Sir, you know why I stopped you today? You're gonna have to step out of the vehicle.
The man follows Lee's instructions.
Now look, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I was just driving down.
Then, without warning, he takes off running. Officer Lee fires a warning shot, but the man refuses to stop. Officer Lee places the man under arrest. And when he discovers who he is, he's stunned. He's just captured one of the nation's top fugitives, Ted Bundy.
31-year-old Ted Bundy is accused of murdering 2 Florida State University students last year.
Bundy's charged with 2 counts of burglary, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of murder in the first degree. His dental records are matched to bite marks found on one of the victims killed at the Chi Omega sorority.
As to count 2 of the indictment, murder in the first degree upon one Margaret Bowman, guilty as charged.
18 months later, in July 1979, a jury found Theodore Bundy guilty of all charges.
The jury, which convicted Theodore Bundy of murdering 2 young women in Florida, today recommended that he be executed for his crimes.
Sentenced to death, he ultimately confessed to killing Denise Naslund, Janice Ott, and 28 other women.
One of the things Ted tells the detectives that are interviewing him is, "I'm the coldest son of a bitch you'll ever meet." And that, I think, is absolutely true. I think Ted was a very evil individual. All the murders he committed, the lives he took, the families he destroyed, there was nothing redeeming about Ted.
Years after Bundy's arrest, author Thomas Harris created the character Buffalo Bill, a killer that used Bundy's horrifying technique of luring women with weakness in The Silence of the Lambs, a best-selling book that would later become an award-winning blockbuster film. But the real killer is more terrifying than anything print or screen could ever portray. A predator, killing without remorse or reason. A demon in the flesh, named Ted Bundy.
Oh, God!
Dozens of murdered women. A sorority house massacre. and a handsome psychopath you'd never suspect. These things shouldn't be real.
Bundy admitted to 2 murders in Idaho and 8 in Utah.
But they are. It's the true story of the Silence of the Lambs, behind the screams.